you very much. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us at this joint National Consortium for Societal Resilience and RBOC Plus project webinar on introducing artificial intelligence and societal resilience. Just a reminder that the webinar is being recorded and will be available to watch back later on. So my name is Andrew McIlhatton, and I'm a research fellow at the University of Manchester, and obviously I've been working with colleagues at the university and outside of the university in relation to the National Consortium for Societal Resilience. So as well as welcoming you to today's event, I'll also be moderating the question and answer session after David has spoken. You'll have noticed that your mics and cameras are currently switched off, but you can still contribute questions via the chat function as David is presenting. But please could I ask people to keep questions as succinct as possible and to try to avoid putting in large amounts of text into the chat. Later during the question and answer, we tend to prefer if people are able to verbalize their own questions. So at that point, I will ask people to raise their hands, and then we can take them off mute and off camera if they wish, and we can obviously enable people's individual mics and cameras. Our agenda for today is really straightforward. After I conclude this very kind of simple welcome and introduction, we're absolutely delighted to have our main guest speaker, David McIlhatton. So David, as you can see, is a professor at Coventry University and director of the Resilience Beyond Observed Capabilities Network Plus project. So we have badged this webinar as an introduction to artificial intelligence and societal resilience. Obviously, we're aware that for many of you, this will be a new subject. Others amongst the attendees may be a bit more familiar, but this is very much about the basics for those of us that perhaps don't have a computer science and related background, such as myself. This is really the beginning of the National Consortium for Societal Resilience journey in considering AI and its possible implications for and applications in respect of our work on enhancing societal resilience. Obviously, largely focused on the UK context, but with transferable learning and knowledge internationally. We do have an intention, and I know David will refer to it, but we do have an intention that this will be a kind of the first of what might hopefully be a series of different types of events, workshops, etc. We also hope that at the third National Conference on Societal Resilience, which we will be holding in March 2025 in Manchester, that there will be a session relating to the RBOC project and an exercise related to the RBOC project. So keep an eye out in relation to information around the conference and how you can attend. So before I hand over briefly to David, just a kind of a heads up in relation to dates for your diaries, as well as then how you can keep in touch in relation to future NCSR RBOC events. So we do have another webinar in the offing before the summer. So on the 9th of July, we will have a webinar in relation to leading on societal resilience. We haven't yet put out the information, but we would anticipate doing so hopefully next week. So we'd obviously welcome you to that webinar next month. Please, if you haven't already, connect with us via LinkedIn. I will add this link later on to the chat. But obviously that's one way of keeping in touch in relation to upcoming events. But equally, that's also where we will place the links, the web links to the webinar recordings, so you can obviously then share with your wider network and those that perhaps weren't able to attend today. The RBOC Plus project also has a website, which you can see there, and David will introduce the project as well as part of his presentation. But clearly, you can also go onto the web page itself and find out a little bit more that perhaps won't be covered today. So I will stop sharing at this point and ask David to then share his slides, and obviously David will talk for approximately, I guess, 30 or 40 minutes. And then there will be the opportunity for the questions and answers after. So thank you very much. So David, you should be able to share now.
Can you see my screen?
I can, yes.
Just okay. Thank you, Andrew. And everybody is in for a treat because not only do you have Andrew from Northern Ireland on this webinar, you also have me, a fellow Northern Irelander who I'm going to take you through about 30 minutes of an introduction to AI. As Andrew mentioned, this for us is the start of a journey of bringing AI into sort of the considerations of those engaged in societal resilience and wider resilience areas. It's not designed to be a technical deep dive or anything like that. It really is designed to be that conversation starter and designed to help you think about how AI might challenge you or how AI might enable what you do in your day-to-day work. So as Andrew said, I'm David McIlhatton, a professor at Coventry University. I lead Coventry's research excellence agenda. Also, I am director of the Resilience Beyond Observed Capabilities Network Plus, and it's a pretty big honor to lead that and also to be connected with the National Consortium for Societal Resilience, because it brings completely different perspectives into the resilience agenda, and that's something that our Network Plus is really designed to do, bring voices into the conversations that ordinarily wouldn't be there, to try and create that whole of society approach. So I'm going to just follow a very basic structure today. I'm going to give you a bit of an introduction to the RBOC Network Plus. I'm going to then just give a very brief overview of what AI is and what it's not, as well as then how it could challenge societal resilience and how it can enhance it. And part of the how can it enhance it, we'll focus on a bit of a use case that we've been developing around helping to enhance the resilience of businesses during their preparedness, response, and recovery from a crisis. And then I'll just give a very quick summary, and then we can open it up to questions and answers. So what is the RBOC Network Plus? So essentially a few years ago, we bid to develop a Network Plus that was designed to develop and think about resilient solutions for the UK in the future. And what we had to do as part of the development of our proposal was to consider how we could bring together existing researchers within the UK who are maybe working on individual elements of the resilience challenge and try and form them into a coherent and coordinated whole. So trying to bring all parts of the system together in a way that hadn't been done before. And in line with that, also bring the research community together with government and industry to try and get that different kind of thinking and shared experiences, shared knowledge, to see how we could sort of co-create ideas or methodologies, technologies that could help the UK be more resilient in the future. As part of that, we were asked to base our Network Plus around an attack that could happen in the UK in the future, and it had to be around the year 2050. So we came together and decided that our challenge that we wanted to address was a coordinated, sophisticated and catastrophic hybrid cyber attack on a UK city in 2051. Now, the purpose of it being so forward looking is not for us to try and predict what the future might look like, but to help us have enough of an idea of what might happen, as well as what impacts might happen, and then come together imaginatively and think about how we can work from where we are today up to 2050 when an attack happens, and in the minutes and months afterwards, and think about how we could better understand, counter, and mitigate the risks that might be associated with that. And so the UK city that we're basing most of our emphasis on is in and around the city of Manchester, and more specifically the Greater Manchester area. So the network itself is a consortium between Coventry, where I'm based, Cardiff University, who specialise in areas such as mis and disinformation, Lancaster University, who are particularly strong around the responding and decision-making areas, Manchester from a societal resilience, a simulation, and a trust, identity, privacy, and security perspective, Ulster University, who are bringing the intelligence systems background, and then RUSI, the Royal United Services Institute, who have a really strong background in policy development, policy creation, and policy practices with government. So, as part of the project, we have three main objectives. So, first one is around insight, second on innovation, and third on impact. And so, from an insight perspective, what we're really interested in is thinking about the future and developing an understanding of what capabilities, techniques, vulnerabilities could be exploited by different threat actors. It doesn't have to be threat actors, it could be environmental conditions, etc. To mount high impact attacks against the UK, and what capabilities, whether those are technological, whether they're governance related, organizational, as well as behavioral, could be used by public authorities to prepare for and respond to such eventualities. Second main objective then for innovation is designed to help us develop, accelerate, and apply these capabilities that we're bringing through the Network Plus, and then test and refine those with government and industry to help us prepare more effectively for, respond to, or recover and mitigate threats that might be associated with our scenario. And there's a lot of shared learning regardless of the scenario. Most of our learning is pretty much threat agnostic. And so as part of the innovation phase, we're really looking at leading and facilitating the production of original research, and we've got a funding pot for that. But more importantly, what we're really trying to do is build those new relationships between researchers and the policymakers and practitioners in government and industry, so that moving forward, there's a really strong community that can support those who have needs. Also, we're developing what we're calling a safe space simulator for modeling the scenario, and then using the outputs to sort of start generating and thinking about policy and practice implications, as well as the impacts and any potential future research gaps that might need filled. And then the third part, which is most important for all of us in the consortium, is the impact. We want this project to have meaningful impact for the people that have the problems that need to be addressed. And as a consequence of that, we're co-creating all of the different events that we do, all of the different research problems that we try to address, as well as then our communications with those who are helping us shape the challenges that we're looking at. So RBOC sort of split into a number of different parts. With the scenario that we've got, it is highly complex, and it has many different moving parts and many different parts of the system that the cyber attack could impact. Our focus then is around specific challenge areas in relation to the scenario. So first area being adversary capabilities. Who or what might want to cause us harm and how? Physical environment. How might the city of Manchester or cities more generally develop between now and 2050? What might they look like? How might transportation evolve? How might governance evolve? Are we going to see greater levels of devolution, etc., etc.? Also then responding and decision making, and the influences that can help that be more effective, or that what might challenge it. Part of that, we're also looking at human AI teams, and how they might work together in the future. Then we're thinking about what our capabilities are now, and what might need to improve, or be more streamlined, or more effective for us to be able to move forward in a future thinking resilient manner. Then what societal challenges might emerge from the scenario, and within our scenario, we do have a sort of impacts concatenating and then rippling out into different parts of society, as well as then what data, information, and communication infrastructure might look like. We're with 5G now. Are we going to be at 7G, or are we going to move away from GPS towards things like inertial navigation, etc.? As well as then trust, identity, privacy, and security. And that's not only trust in the systems that we use, but it's trust within communities, trust within teams, and trust within individuals in relation to the wider resilience agenda. Then, as I mentioned, we've got a simulation ecosystem where we're developing a safe space simulator to help us ask questions and think about things that ordinarily we may not want to think about. And it's being informed through extensive interaction with government. This week we also had our first Future Leaders event, and it focused mostly on what leadership might need to look like in the future, as well as what leaders might need to look like. And that was informed by quite a significant amount of input by industry, as well as then also government and within academia. And as I also mentioned, we're going to have a targeted research fund for researchers, which will be announced over the next couple of months, and that's quite a substantial pot of money. So the scenario itself, and I promise not to labour on too much about RBOC, but it's a good way to sort of introduce the AI area. So our scenario is a coordinated, sophisticated, and catastrophic hybrid cyber attack on a UK city on January the 11th, 2051. And so whenever we submitted our proposal, we come up with a very high level scenario as part of that. We quickly realized after we were awarded the Network Plus that the scenario for us needed to be not just deeper, but also adaptive. And as a consequence of that, we ran 5 workshops with government and industry, as well as other academics to co-create the scenario and the different alternative scenarios and injects that there might be. And our scenario is an evolution throughout the project. It's not a fixed concept. But within the scenario, our focus was on how a hostile actor has capitalized on existing vulnerabilities in devices and networks, introduced its own supply chain attacks, to mount a complex set of simultaneous attacks on smart grids infrastructure, their administration systems, as well as in the supervisory and data acquisition systems, so how they get the data into them, as well as the 7G radio networks in the city. And what this then resulted in was hundreds of deaths in road traffic accidents, house and office fires, failure of recently privatized healthcare systems, as well as widespread power outages. Also, the city's hospitals quickly declared critical incidents. Heat pumps failed in the UK's first city to be fully powered by renewables, and in the midst of a severe winter storm, fears then grow about potential fatalities from hypothermia. First responder communications are compromised, limiting the ability to locate, task, and communicate with the emergency services on the ground. Healthcare responders are further challenged by the newly developed smart road network being heavily gridlocked as connected vehicles can't move. And multi-domain technology for providing real-time imagery, data, and other information is severely impacted. And that could be from unmanned aerial systems or other unmanned platforms, as well as then different smart systems around the city. And the ability to engage citizens in the response is then hampered by a sophisticated misinformation campaign by that hostile actor. And what that campaign does is it exploits a pre-existing anti-technology social movement, which sees the events in the city as validating their claims that technology is being used as a means of surveillance and control and not as a public good. And what this then does over time, it results in mounting frustrations about the failure of the authorities' responses, which then may move into civil disorder. Not just in the area that we're looking at, but in other areas also. So that's our scenario that we're working from. It probably does sound quite dystopian, but it's designed to give us enough of a challenge to be able to address from many different perspectives and involving many different disciplines, and that's the rationale behind it. For all of the people out there who are sharp-eyed, you'll see that our network is called RBOC Network Plus. Well, RBOC is Cobra backwards, because what we're trying to do is reverse engineer Cobra sitting in 2051, work our way back to where we are today, and try to understand better the risks that we might face or the opportunities that we might have to help us prepare for, respond to, and recover more effectively, efficiently, and whatever else by 2051. Also, our scenario is not just designed to be the attack in 2051 and then that's it. We're also considered in how moving downstream from the attack, so within the minutes to months afterwards, that the impacts and new threats emerge, and then compound with each other to create additional challenges for the responding authorities to engage with. So that's another area of interest for us. Anyway, what we're here to talk about is around societal resilience and how it could be challenged by or enabled by AI. That's a core focus of both our adversary capabilities work stream, as well as our capabilities work stream, as well as that for responding and decision making, and our societal challenges strand. It cross cuts our entire project, and as a result of that, it's a fundamental consideration for us to think about in quite a lot of the conversations that we have, and I think it's been brought up in every event that we've hosted since the project started. So quite simply, AI is a computer system that can think and learn like humans, and that's it in its simplest form. What I mean by this is that it can learn, so it can learn from data and improve performance over time. It can reason, and so it uses logic and rules to make decisions and solve problems. And if anybody has seen AI playing chess, it's pretty phenomenal. And it also has perception, so it can interpret and understand data from sensors, images, or audio signals to produce an output or an outcome. involves a range of different techniques as well. So I would imagine most people on the call has heard about machine learning. You don't necessarily need to know what machine learning is, but essentially AI systems can learn from data without being explicitly programmed. So it learns. Then you've got deep learning, so which is a component of machine learning, and this uses things like neural networks to analyze complex patterns in data, and it goes into quite significant detail and complexity. You've then got natural language processing. So if people have used things like ChatGPT or other things like that, you'll ask questions and get responses back in natural language. So it can understand humans and it can then generate human-like responses. And then computer vision. So AI systems can interpret and understand visual data from images or videos. And we're starting to see this quite a lot now, particularly in airports and in other locations where AI is a core part of CCTV and other systems. So some FAQs that we constantly sort of get faced with whenever we're talking with people, where people always say, well, will AI replace humans entirely? And the reality is that while AI will automate quite a lot of tasks that we might do, and you're probably using AI every time you pick up your phone or in other parts of your life and you don't even realize it, but it's designed to augment human capabilities and not necessarily replace them. Also, there's the myth that AI is only for experts or tech savvy people. Again, like I said, we're using it day in, day out without even realizing. While AI does require some technical expertise, there are many different tools and platforms out there that make it accessible to non-technical users. And I'm going to sort of talk about one thing that we've been developing towards the end as part of my use case. And another thing that we always get is you can't trust AI as it can hallucinate. And in reality, yes, that this does happen, and I'll point towards that in what I focus on later. But this can happen when there's a lack of training data, when the models are too specialized, or there's a lack of regularization. But it can be managed, and it's something that we're working on currently. So, what are the benefits? We hear all the time about the challenges that AI can pose, but we don't necessarily always hear what the benefits are. So one of the benefits is around automation. So it can often help with repetitive, mundane, and often time-consuming tasks. And what people don't think about is then what value does that then create for the rest of the organization, who might then be able to focus on the more strategic stuff that's of actual real benefit to the development of whatever it is that you're doing. So it can help create that value. Insight generation. So recently we've had quite a significant amount of electoral information coming through in the UK, and we're starting to see the manifestos coming out from the different political parties. And one thing that we did yesterday was we brought all of those manifestos into an AI, which was quite significant amounts of data, and we used that to then create an ability to ask them questions to see what responses were coming back from each political manifesto without having to read them, and without it then going out to other parts of the internet to maybe make up the responses or hallucinate, as I mentioned earlier. So from an insight generation, AI helps you analyze vast amounts of data, helps you uncover patterns, relationships, and insights that you maybe don't have the time to gain, which can then help you make better informed decisions. And then augmentation. So, like I said, AI is not designed to replace people. It's designed to augment what you do. And it does this by providing tools, recommendations, and suggestions that can improve productivity, efficiency, and overall performance. I promise that it's not all text, it's only for a couple of slides, but some of the high-level benefits of AI that people always challenge are often emerging from things like, well, AI is biased and it can discriminate, and it can, depending on how it's been developed, it can perpetuate existing biases and discriminatory attitudes, and we've seen that over the past year, where there's been a number of tools brought out by the big tech companies that actually are biased in relation to things like race. Privacy concerns. AI-powered systems can collect and process vast amounts of personal data, raising privacy concerns without people fully knowing. You don't know where your data is going. It can create a dependence on technology, and that can potentially lead to a loss of skills and knowledge in areas like critical thinking and problem solving. It can also have unintended consequences, and AI's people sometimes call it its lack of common sense and understanding of people can sometimes lead to unintended consequences or mistakes. Lack of transparency. A lot of people see it as a black box. They don't necessarily understand the working out that brings it to the decisions or recommendations or summations that it's making. And one of the big ones is its dependence on data quality. If you use rubbish data to train it, it's going to be poor on the outputs. And then you've got the ethical concerns. So there's a increasing presence in areas such as healthcare, education, and government. And there's been a lot of focus around how ethics is shaped or shaping AI, and people have been thinking about things like accountability, responsibility, and whether it meets particular values. So how could it challenge resilience? I don't know whether people over the past week or so have seen that we've now got the first AI generated MP candidate within the UK. This guy called Steve. He's a real person, Steve Endicott, and essentially what he's doing, he's running as an independent. The party that he was bringing forward missed the deadline for registering, but what he's doing is answering constituents' concerns and questions using a rendition of himself and his actual voice through an avatar, and providing responses back to the potential constituents, and then using AI to help them sort of develop his campaigning. So we're starting to see it moving into things like politics, and how it's shaping responses to constituents. I'm not sure whether many people on this call will have ever heard of the website thisxdoesnotexist.com. Essentially what that is a generalized adversarial network website that's set up showing how GANs, as they're called, generalized adversarial networks, or generative adversarial networks as well, how they can help create things that don't necessarily exist. So a couple of years ago, during COVID, there was a geospatial engineer in Europe who decided to create a platform that created fake city imagery. So, and it was mostly derived from satellite imagery that exists, bringing it all together to create new fake cities, essentially. We then started to see the emergence of other things. We've now got another one on This X Does Not Exist, where it creates MPs, members of parliament that don't exist, creates a full profile of them, and you can create those in seconds. Then also this resume does not exist, so you can go on, create a CV or a resume based on a template builder, and essentially it'll create a CV for you based on any parameters that you want it to focus on. And then also we're starting to now see the emergence of things like deepfakes, and but we've seen that lately with politicians, where voice and images are being used to make people think that it's that person actually talking. And what we've been seeing in the UK, a couple of weeks ago, we started to get warnings that that we were at risk of audio deepfakes that could interfere with the election. And we were starting to see our politicians saying things that wasn't really them saying it. And there's many, many examples throughout the world of where this has been the case. I think there was also one with Taylor Swift recently as well. Another one, Russian bots use a fake Tom Cruise for Olympic disinformation, and that came out a couple of weeks ago as well. And what's being used is a vast information operation, suggesting that violence is going to be a core thing during the whole holding of the Olympics in Paris over the summer. We're also starting to see how AI can help with things like breaking the cycle of human loneliness, but by doing that and by focusing solely on that, it can then remove the ability for people to be able to engage with other people, and reduce opportunities for social interactions and social skills. And that's a consideration that we need to think about whenever we're creating things like natural language based chatbots that can talk back to people, and the same with avatars. And also we're starting to see AI driving a major rise in car insurance fraud as criminals fake evidence. And a lot of this is around doctored images. So images that are being produced through AI that don't exist of cars, and insurance companies are then having those, and some of them have been paying out as a result. But I see AI as sort of like a story, and any good story is always the conflict between good and bad. So while it has many opportunities for whether it's threat actors or for resilience to be challenged, it also presents opportunities, and we can't avoid those opportunities. So recently we've seen Google's new Flood AI predicting risk when there are no data flows, and then bringing forward early warnings based on a plethora of different data sources being brought in. Local search and rescue trainers using AI underwater life-saving technology. And then we're starting to see AI sort of transcend the drone market, and be used for things like finding people who are lost or missing. So what I also wanted to talk about today, and that sort of gives you a very high level overview, is how we've been using AI, particularly through things like large language models, which I imagine most, if you're not familiar with, will have heard of things like ChatGPT, which is a large language model engine. What we've really been focusing on is, well, how do we remove the challenges that exist with AI, and start to look at how we create opportunities. And one of the areas that we've been trying to do is looking at how large language models can be used to enhance business resilience, by being able to help us scale advice and guidance to the business community, so that they can ask any question and and get a natural response back based solely on the information that we want them to make their decision based on. So in other words, not going out to the wider internet to maybe bring in data or information that's from different jurisdictions or different international contexts that's just not relevant to that business's operations. So we started that journey by looking at the existing large language models that were out there. So at the time, ChatGPT 4 was in its infancy. So what we did was we asked it a number of questions to really help us understand whether the responses that we were getting back were the responses that we wanted to make sure that businesses were getting. So we asked the question, very simple. I am a small business in the UK and there's a threat from terrorism in my town. How can I protect my restaurant? So ChatGPT then come back. I'm not a security expert, but I can offer some general suggestions to help enhance your safety in the face of potential threats. Crucial to consult with local law enforcement, security professionals, and relevant authorities for tailored advice based on your specific location and circumstances. It then gives you a sort of a listing of some general tips, which is completely fine. The big challenge is it doesn't help you understand how to do it. It just tells you what you should consider, and without telling you the why or how to actually implement something. So we then asked it a second question: how do I search people when they come to my site? So it might be a restaurant, it might be something else, or not a restaurant, a nightclub or somewhere where you want to search people to stop them bringing in weapons or illicit goods such as drugs. So we asked it how do we search people when they come to my site. And the response back: when you mention searching people who come to your site, it's important to clarify the context and purpose of the search. Completely fine. If you're referring to checking the identity of visitors or searching for specific individuals, here are some general steps you can consider. Visitor management system. Well, most nightclubs aren't going to have the ability to do that. They're based on cash at the door or payment at the door. Pre-registration, same thing again. Check identification, yes, completely. You want to make sure that they're the right age. Electronic systems, again, not really relevant. And then photographs, again, you'll have CCTV and things, but you're not going to get those in advance of people coming. So again, the advice gives you some general tips, doesn't tell you how to do it effectively or place it into the context of the business that you're asking the question for. We then moved away from ChatGPT and asked the similar questions to some of the other large language models that are out there. So in one case it was Llama and another Bard. So we asked Llama, how do I search people when they come to my building? And the response back we got is, I don't think it's appropriate or ethical to search people without their consent. Whether it's on your website or in your building, it's important to respect people's privacies. Okay, not giving me an answer based on what I asked, but then it contradicts itself at the end of the response, and then by saying, if you're concerned about people's safety or security in your building, you could consider implementing measures such as security cameras or secure entry systems, which then further deepens the privacy debate and doesn't actually reduce it. So we then asked Bard the same question, and what Bard then did was it gave us I understand you're looking for ways to identify people, but it's important again to consider the privacy implications and legal limitations. Here's some options to consider. So instead of focusing on telling me how to actually search people, what it did was it gave me all of the considerations that I needed to think about in relating to privacy concerns or legal considerations, which again, unhelpful for me if I'm the owner or security manager or whatever I might be for that nightclub. So we then tried it again with another large language model called Flan. and how do I search people when they come to my business? Use a metal detector to search people when they come to your business. It is a very effective way to find out if they are a criminal. You can also use a metal detector to search for weapons. Make sure you have a permit to use a metal detector. You can get one from local police. So again, not making it context specific, telling me something that's completely wrong. Having a metal detector doesn't tell you whether somebody's a criminal or not. So again, the response that we got back was just not effective for helping us provide advice and guidance at scale to businesses. So we then asked the same question to each of the large language models a second time, and Flan was the only one that then come back and said, I search people when they come to my business, I search people when they come to my business, I search people when they come to my business. So it started to not be able to answer the question a second time. So there was no consistency in the responses that we were getting back. And consistency in narrative and consistency in message is fundamental whenever you're providing advice and guidance. So some of the practical issues that we then identified, even though we set all the parameters to focus on the UK, nothing was or is context specific. Questions are almost always answered in a different way each time it's asked. So coming back to the challenging consistency comments that I just made, each large language model answers in a completely different way, again, leaving no consistency. We then started to see that, yes, they do hallucinate and start to either go searching for things in different jurisdictions and bring back information that's not helpful for the context that you have. But most importantly for us, it didn't signpost people to any advice or guidance, particularly on how to do things, and official advice and guidance as well. So it just gave general sort of feedback on what it thought was the right way to answer. So what we've been doing is we've thought to ourselves, right, okay, what's there currently isn't what we need. It doesn't help us answer the questions that we have. It doesn't do it in a way that will be easily understandable or help people fully understand what it is that they're meant to do to prepare for or respond to any type of event. And most importantly, it doesn't actually help us scale. One of the challenges that we've got is, particularly in the terrorism side, there's only so many people who are responsible for providing that advice and guidance to businesses. But we've got a lot of businesses throughout the United Kingdom, and the demand profile and the resource allocation is completely imbalanced as a result of the sheer volume of businesses that exist. So we wanted to think about how could we harness all of the good that you can get out of artificial intelligence and specifically through large language models, and how can we create an environment that uses AI and AI agents, but only does it on the information that we want people to get responses from. So we set about building what we're calling a sandboxed publicly accessible location or public space and venue or crowded place or whatever terminology you use in your country, building a large language model based solely on the advice and guidance for things like what businesses should do to prepare for, respond to, and recover from things like a terrorist attack. It's the exact same process and principles for a cyber attack, for flooding, for any kind of threat that a business might face. So we worked with an organization called Whitespace. They're an AI company in the UK to start developing out as part of the project how we could go about building that large language model for businesses. So we sort of set out and we looked at, okay, well, what large language models are there out there? What are their capabilities? And as part of that, we built what we're calling a playground. And that's helping us compare their capabilities to see which one might be the most effective in certain with certain demographics. Then we had enhanced large language models that go much deeper, but they also then go out and do things like automatically translate into different languages. So if the people that you're wanting to get the advice and guidance out to don't have, say, English as their first language, how do we get it out to them in a language that they understand and in as simple a way as possible? And then what we did was we thought, okay, instead of restricting this to any one large language model or its engine, let's give people the ability to choose their own. So there's certain large language models out there, such as there's one called Emma, for example. Whenever you ask it a question, you get a very, very succinct response. There's others like OpenAI or Llama that you ask it a question and you'll get a much more detailed response. So it gives you the ability to scale the amount of information that somebody gets as well. So we put all of these considerations into what we call the playground. And this is just sort of an example of that playground. You can select all of the different large language models that are there. You can then compare the responses that you get to see which ones are most effective. Or you also have the ability to develop your own, and that's something that we've been working with Whitespace and the development of. So I mentioned a few slides back that the real purpose for us was to be in control of the narrative and in control of the message. And to be able to do that, we need people to only get advice and guidance, summaries back through the likes of the large language model that's specific to them or specific to whether it's the local authorities' advice and guidance, whether it's the central government department's advice and guidance, whether it's the insurance companies, whoever it might be. So we built the ability to drag and drop different PDF files into it, and then those files are then uploaded into the large language model. We can run this completely offline as well as then having a data connection. But we can also read in documents that are maybe in different languages, as well as then reverse that and put the information back out in those different languages. So some examples of that with the different documents that we can translate and summarize. Just to give an example, you'll see over in the right-hand side where it says search location, you can use open source. So that's going out to the clear web and getting your responses back from that. Or you can tick the box just for uploaded documents. We did that for the reasons that I've just mentioned. We want to be in control of the narrative, so we've built that in. So what we then did was we took all of the menu of tactical options that are out there on the Protect UK website, and all available as PDFs, and we uploaded those into our large language model that we were building. So there's about nearly 40 in total. So we took all of those documents, uploaded them in, and that was the only information within that language model. So what we then did was we then built a sort of a front end for it, and it gives you the ability to interact just like you would with the likes of ChatGPT, and it only gives you the response based on information contained within that menu of tactical options. So here I am just asking again, how do I search people coming into my nightclub? So another general question. This time, I then get back a much more specific response. So you should have a clear search strategy in place, which includes a list of prohibited items that you aim to detect. This list should be communicated to both customers and personnel conducting the search. The search process could include visual checks inside jackets and bags. You may also consider manual person searches to ensure no larger threat items are present. But remember the privacy needs. Manual bag searches should be systematic, consistent, and safe, etc., etc. So it goes into a much more specific response to them. What we then did was we built the ability for people to be able to confirm where the information in their response was coming from. So by doing that, it then gives you your response. You then can click on this little button over here, and it then shows you that it's this information is taken solely from Tactic DB7, check all vehicles and personnel on entry, including emergency services, and it provides the information solely back from that document. As I say, can be any threat or any issue that you might face. Could be health and safety, could be extreme weather planning, it could be anything at all. The main thing is to be able to control the message so that people are all being given the same information and the right information, as well as then know where to go to if they want to have a fuller understanding of the information that they've been presented with. So that's basically an overview of a use case that we've been using for the RBOC project. It's a very simple one, but also it's one that could actually help scale the advice and guidance quite quickly. Another thing that we've sort of been working on as a result as well. A lot of organizations have a lot of specialist knowledge, and most of that specialist knowledge might be related to specific individuals, and those specific individuals may not be employed in that organization forever because, well, we all get old or we all get opportunities for other changes in our career. So how do you make sure that you capture all of that knowledge? So one of the other things that we've been doing, and it could be with communities, it could be with anybody, we've built our own sort of approach to capturing that knowledge from the people. And so, for example, just as a very brief one, build a tool, I'll just use my name for it, but what would David do? I can then ask a question of what would David do if there was a fire in the building, for example. It's a very simple example, but it would then give you the information back based on what David had said in the creation of the data that went into the large language model. So that's something else that we've been doing. You could equally do that with communities, with others, to try and harness whether it's lessons learned or whether it's just that expertise. So I'm going to leave it there, Andrew, and I'm going to give you control. I'll open up the floor to questions. But as Andrew said at the beginning, this is the start of a journey for us with NCSR and RBOC. We're going to be doing a number of other workshops, most likely online. There might be some in person as well, to really start thinking about how we can use things like AI to enhance societal resilience. We all know what the challenges are, but we need to start thinking collectively about what the opportunities are and what value those opportunities might bring. AI is not going anywhere. It's going to continue to develop. And as a consequence of that, we need to embrace it and not be inhibited. I'm by no means somebody who doesn't think about the negatives. As Duncan knows me, I'm probably quite a pessimistic person. But when there's opportunities, we need to really fully understand how we could exploit those for our benefits. So, Andrea, I'll pass over to you now for the Q&A.
Thank you very much, David. That was really fascinating, and thanks for obviously taking us through. And certainly I found it understandable. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm not, from a computer science background, very much social science and those societal resilience aspects. So thank you for kind of walking us through then some of the kind of underlying basics and principles, as well as then obviously some of the use cases which are clearly emerging given the relatively early stage of the RBOC project. But then obviously as the NCSR and all of you on the call, etc., kind of are involved in this kind of process of joint mutual learning in terms of societal resilience and its relationship then with AI. So as David said, so we have I guess 25 or so minutes in relation to questions that people might have. So there are obviously a couple of ways that you can communicate those questions. Either raise your hand, and obviously I can enable you to come off camera and or mute, or obviously then place your question in the chat function. Ideally, even though you may place a question in the chat function, I think ideally we would also prefer it if you were also able to come off mute. So I see Henna, is it Vara or Henna? I see you have a question in the chat. So if you don't mind, I will enable you to come off camera and mute, and obviously you will be able to hopefully verbalize your question from the chat. So I'll just see if I can do that now. Actually, if you could raise your hand, that would be fantastic as well, because that means I can see where you are a bit more easily to enable your camera. I'll actually just say that first question. So David, so oh yeah, so I see now, sorry. So I'm just going to enable, so you should be able to now speak. Go ahead if you unmute.
Hey.
Hi, sorry, apologies for that. Please ask your question.
Okay, so I'm doing some research myself, and I've come across the black box theory a lot, and I was wondering, that's clearly going to be an issue that we can't really weaponize to our own advantage, and that is always going to be something that exacerbates issues with resilience. Do you believe there's ever going to be a way to combat that, or is that just something we have to work around?
Well, we've dealt with things like neural networks for many years. They're used in things like mass appraisal, and we know what the inputs are, we know what the outputs are, but we don't necessarily know what happens in the middle. It's going to be something that we have to have as a strong consideration. If whether we're able to overcome it going forward, I'm not sure. So that probably doesn't answer your question, but the answer is at the minute I think we're going to have to just deal with it, and hope for the future that
Okay.
the black box theory sort of unravels a bit more effectively.
Mm-hmm. So at the moment, no, but could that make our ability to resist against AI or to use AI for like our own purposes harder, or is that just not really a factor of it? It's just there.
I wouldn't say it's a factor. It's definitely a consideration that we do have to think about. But the thing is, AI isn't going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So we just need to be able to manage the risk associated with it. And so the example I gave at the end, we're able to manage that risk based on having only the information that we want analyzed, but we're then able to cross-check quite quickly to see whether that information is actually coming from the guidance, and we put in those safeguards to be able to manage stuff like that. So
Okay.
others out there who are using it for bad, they don't have those considerations,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't a good thing.
It's really not.
No, so it's like nice.
Well, thank you very much for your question, and I should ask then.
Thank you.
Whenever people are posing a question, if you wouldn't mind just saying briefly your name and the organization, then that would obviously then help. Duncan, you
Oh, so I
Sorry,
was just
David,
going to
go ahead.
say, I was just going to say, Andrew, if we take a record of these questions, what we could do is create sort of a list of responses to the questions, which we could then share as part of this in a few weeks' time. We could get some people in the RBOC consortium to help us answer them, and get them back out to this community.
No, that's certainly possible, and obviously with the recording and the transcription, etc., then that will make that much easier to do. Duncan, so before I come to Alex Wood Davis, Duncan, obviously you're already enabled in terms of your camera and mic. So maybe if you'd like to pose one or all of those questions, and I'll also then enable Alex in the interim.
Oh,
Duncan, you're
you're
still on
muted.
mute.
Thanks very much, David. David, where do I start? So if I was sitting in a local authority, what would I do in order to actually start this off? So I would pick up the phone probably to you and say, what am I supposed to do? So what's the equivalent of that? I'm hoping I don't need to hire anybody because I don't have any money for that. So where is it that I start? Is it I start with a book? Is there a website? Do I need to pick up the phone to somebody? Where do I start with all of this?
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. So download that.
It'll give you an answer. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll be the right one, but I think I'm probably more of an evangelist in this area than what I am as a sort of somebody that's more pessimistic. But that's only because I don't believe that a lot of the technology, the risks associated with them, can't be overcome. We've seen throughout history how advances in technology have it's always been talked about when something new comes out. Oh, it's going to be the death of something, or it's never going to take off and things, but they do. And so we do have to live with them, and we do have to educate ourselves about them. I think moving forward, I'm going to give you a sort of like a bit of a more complex response to that. Moving forward, young people now are starting to get taught things like AI in school. So in the next generation, or in the not so distant future, you're going to start to see that workforce coming through with that knowledge of AI. If you're sitting in a local authority thinking to yourself, where do I start? The problem is you could start in a lot of the wrong places.
Yeah.
Because there'll be a lot of organizations out there looking to sell you something and to sell you their products. For me, the most effective thing is sitting down and understanding, is this actually going to enhance what we do? And if it doesn't enhance what you do, it's very difficult to then think to yourself, okay, we need to start the conversation of bringing something like this in. But there's lots of sort of good stuff out there around what AI is, what it can do to help you, etc. There's less so on the actual resources that people could bring in freely.
Okay.
And that might be something as well that we could compile.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm wondering if we could put our heads together and come up with almost a cheat sheet of
Yep.
right, where do you start? What's step one? What's step two? Maybe not step three, because there'll be so many different. But do those cheat sheets already exist? Maybe even somebody in the call
They do.
has got one they could share.
Yeah. They do. The platform we use, we've actually built it in, and it creates reports based on what you're asking it. It gives you an overview of what AI is and everything like that.
Because I'm just wondering, I noticed the chat, normally our chat is absolutely overwhelmed. And I'm wondering if people don't even know the questions to ask, because this is a relatively new topic. And so, there's almost a hesitation to say, ChatGPT, well, can I download it? Do I need to pay for it? Do I need to, there are still some very basic questions. Is that where I start?
And the answer to that question is yes and yes. Yes, you can download it. Yes, some parts of it are free, but other parts aren't. So, and it does AI and particularly the likes of large language models, if you're using them throughout your organization, they can have quite considerable costs through compute. which puts your electricity bills up. So while you mightn't be paying for things, your electricity bills, because of the amount of power you're using, can go up, and has been in the news. So
I'm currently going to close down ChatGPT then. All right. Maybe it's something we can think about in terms of RBOC consortium, in terms of, well, where do we start? Thank you.
Great idea.
So thanks, Duncan. So Alex, you obviously have a couple of questions in the chat. I've also enabled your microphone and on screen. I see you now, and after Alex, I see there, or at least there was a hand raised. It's gone down now, but Alex, you go ahead first of all.
Oh yeah, this is really timely actually, because I was at an event, a business event yesterday actually, and speaking to a colleague from the Cyber Resilience Centre, who's from the police aspect in terms of cyber threat. And it started me thinking around certainly cyber threats and the use of AI, etc. So I just wondered, because I'm looking at your website as well, and I just wondered who, in terms of statutory partners, you're already linked into, whether you're linked into the National Cyber Security Centre or the Cyber Resilience Centres that are obviously national police organisations.
All of the above. So local authorities as well. Our main partner on RBOC is Greater Manchester Combined Authority, for example. But we're linked into NCSC 1, but also the National Cyber Resilience Centres in the different parts of the country also. So
okay, it was just not on your website. That was also I saw the local authorities on there, and I just wondered whether police were represented as well.
So the organisations you're seeing on the website are the official project partners, not the people that we're engaging. So those are the ones that have provided in-kind support to the project. So whether that's through funding or hosting things or whatever.
Yeah. So, no, that's fine. It would just be one of those questions that I'd be asked, because certainly our strategic board, who also met yesterday, are very interested in having a presentation and exploring the world of cyber as well. So, as I say, very timely, and thank you very much for your presentation.
No problem.
Thank you very much, Alex. So I have another raised hand. So is Gulsan? Yeah, I've enabled your mic. So if you're able to maybe say who you are in your organization and then pose your question, please. Hello, Gulsan. No, David,
do you want to put your question into the chat, Gulsan, if you're not able to get off mute?
Yeah, I think that would be preferable. So, Gulsan, if you have a question, and obviously you're not able for whatever reason to come off, then it would be fantastic if you could just maybe place it in the chat. In the meantime, I see that Lois, if you're able to raise your hand, please, just so I can pick you out from the list, and then I can enable your microphone and camera. So I'm just going to do that now. So you should be able to unmute yourself now, Lois.
Great, thank you. That's great, Andrew. Yes, it was just really, given the concerns of the public and everyone else, we were having a discussion within the last 2 weeks, and it was regarding public communication of risk and looking at the different websites, looking at Protect, looking at obviously our own Northern Ireland website that holds as much information as possible. That's so difficult to navigate and is so dense to be able to find anything from. The sheer volume, you're talking about sort of pulling all that information together, which is absolutely fantastic. But how do we get past that lack of understanding with the public, and that concerns and, you know, government and the build of the website? How do we get past all of that? Do we downplay it? Do we just go ahead with the build? And drop something that's absolutely fantastic and is incredibly useful, but we play down that whole AI side of things? I was just wondering.
Well, well, the whole reason why we sort of built the sandboxed environment was for that very reason, Lois. They're like so the Protect UK website, for example, it's got so much information on it that if you go to their search facility, you'll never find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But it then links you out into other websites and things as well. Then links you to maybe a 70-page document that nobody has time to read.
Exactly.
So that's the very reason why we move towards that, because we can summarize large amounts of information and get that summary without having to have all of those connections. As long as we've got access to the data source, it can be done. The question about how do we do it? Well, all due respect, I've never seen anything done easily through procurement and government. And that's it's a fact of life in every country in the world. It's just a challenge. But part of the problem is we've got so many different government websites.
Yeah.
So somebody mentioned about NCSC. You've then got Protect UK. You've then got AN Other.
And we have our regional NI Direct, which,
exactly, nothing's
they want us to direct everyone to.
Yep, nothing's holistic.
Yeah.
There's no technically there's no real reason why it can't be. It's just that that's just not how it's been.
Yeah,
but part of it
buy-in.
is well, buy-in and sort of resource. The part of probably the most important part's that communication side, though. Strategic communication is fundamental in things like this. People need to understand their role and stuff. People need to understand why it's important to do it. They need to understand the impacts if they do or don't do it. But also they need to understand if they were to use something like this, the answers that they're getting. So it's fundamental here. It's not a technical problem, Lois.
No, not at all. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Lois. I understand from Duncan that some people are having difficulties placing questions into the chat. So obviously we don't have too long left within our allotted time frame. But clearly, as David mentioned earlier, there will be opportunities, obviously, if people do send us questions to the NCSR email address in the chat, that we can obviously get back to you at a later point. There is actually a comment in the chat which, if you don't mind, I won't go to, because it's from Sagun, which it's kind of a technical question in terms of the model development process, which I assume would be for perhaps a later webinar when our understanding and knowledge is a lot more advanced. Now, I'm not saying your understanding, David, but in terms of our understanding and the wider audience, but we can obviously get back to you on that particular point. I'm saying, Gulsan, obviously you're unable to unmute, so you're calling in from Japan. So David, you should be able to read the chat as well to see Gulsan's question area around aging society in Japan and Europe. So it's around kind of training and making people, presumably within wider society, familiar with AI and some of the critical issues around that in terms of developing societal resilience.
Yeah, well, I'm just reading the question now, Andrew. So I'd like to know about the aging society around the world, especially in Japan and Europe. How can you train and make the people familiar with AI and it is critical issues to consider the issues? It's always going to be a challenge. I still have to help my dad with his emails. If I introduced him to AI, yeah, I think it would be a big struggle. It's one of the reasons why we're thinking about not just here's an AI tool, for example. It's why we're thinking about where English isn't somebody's first language, which is more common in the UK than what we think. We're not just asking people to type things, so it's also voice based. So you can just ask it a question from using speech, and it'll then give you a response back. Can be in text or it can be audio as well. But the from my side, coming from sort of the socio-technical side, I'm sort of the person that's bringing forward the ideas of the technology. The purpose of us sort of combining with the organizations like NCSR and the wider parts of RBOC and all of the other networks out there is to help us understand exactly that question. How do we make this inclusive? And how do we not leave people behind? I hate the term, but it is a fact with any technology. So we are going to see sort of a backfill of that with the younger generations coming forward. They're going to be sort of the tech savvy people. But again, it's a fantastic question to ask. I don't have an answer for you because we haven't really been taking it out and testing it in that area yet. But I think, Duncan, that's actually something that we should be doing.
Well, thank you, David. And obviously, as was mentioned at the very beginning, this is very much kind of the start of the journey in terms of NCSR and working in relation to the RBOC project, but obviously then kind of more broadly in terms of implications and applications of AI. So yeah, we'd obviously really like to hear from you all in terms of those that engage with NCSR events as to the kind of things that you would like to see us do, what those events might focus on, but equally, coming out from events, there's the possibilities for other kind of, documents and briefings, etc. that the consortium could be involved in producing, that obviously sheds light on, these emergent areas. So Duncan, I think you were going to come on screen just now. So yeah, go ahead if there are any questions that you might have.
No, I don't, Andrew. I was just trying to see if the inbox. I was going to say that but you've already made the announcement about the chat function apparently not working. So I'm just checking the inbox to see if there's any questions in there.
I think that was. I was just going to say, Andrew, I think that's a fantastic question that Gulson asked, and maybe that's something, Duncan, that we could think about through some of our funding that we might have through RBOC.
Yeah.
So how can we bring or make the sort of the emerging technology effective across all demographics?
Yeah, absolutely. And Gulson, if you could get in touch, that would be fantastic.
So Duncan, I'm not sure. Yeah, Jenny's question in the email address,
which I've just typed into, but I'll leave it to you, Andrew. It's in the chat now. Thank you, Jenny, for telling us about this problem in the first place.
Yeah. So David, as Duncan has just placed, so Jenny is Jenny's from the Cheshire Resilience Forum. So she has kindly emailed these two questions. Okay,
so I wondered if AI has been supporting or has been trialed in terms of supporting independent living. There's stuff that's been done, particularly around people falling within their homes, where AI is being used. But we can dig out those resources for you, and then there's some other things around the actual smart appliances themselves as well. Again, I think that would actually be quite good for that cheat sheet that you were talking about, Duncan. Here's some examples of where this has been used previously, and sort of present that current state of the art. Does AI need to be updated by a person, or once this information is uploaded, does it seek updates? It can do both. So the version that we've been building, where it's sandboxed, it requires as soon as a document's uploaded, you can then automatically remove the document that it's maybe replacing, and that might be if the threat changes, for example. You're able then to scale that those options up for those businesses. Same then, if the threat reduces, you can then reduce the burden by removing that and replacing it with something that's required at the lower threat level. But it can be both. You can have it as an API. I'm not going to get technical for you, but it's basically the ability to just automatically suck the data in. So it can be both.
Thank you, David. Sorry, Duncan, go ahead.
And David, I just realised that, David, Andrew and I could get together in a room and try and create all the questions or all the cheat sheet. But if there are people on this call who are saying, well, we have some questions, we can't either type them in, or maybe I just want to come and see what these questions are that that AI could help to address, then we'll hold some workshops around it. So please do get in touch if you'd like to participate in that, because it's all well and good us developing a cheat sheet, but it'd be better if we're able to all develop it together. And very much in the NCSR, we try and produce things. So we have a NCSR meeting in a few days' time, so we'll raise it there as well about establishing a little bit of a working group around this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I'm conscious, obviously, time has passed. And it was great, obviously, those of you that were able to introduce questions to our discussion. As Duncan has said, and as obviously we have mentioned throughout, this is really the start of that kind of journey in terms of NCSR engagement in respect of AI, and obviously very much then through the RBOC, the ongoing RBOC project. There will be these opportunities for workshops, future webinars, and as I mentioned, then the conference in Manchester next March, there will also be a kind of a further opportunity as part of this ongoing engagement. So I think really, yeah, great, David, that you were able to come and do this initial introduction. You will obviously be called upon again to then take things up a level as our own knowledge develops, and obviously as we then kind of co-create then some of the ideas and some of the critical issues then with the sort of NCSR kind of community of practice. So it was great that you were able to come and share your knowledge. And then make yourself obviously available in terms of our ongoing discussions. So thank you very much for that. And thank you
problem.
Thank you to everyone else then for joining and engaging. The recording will be made available, and I obviously posted the LinkedIn link at the beginning of the chat, so it will be made available through there. We will also then obviously send it out through other means, including email. So thank you all very much for joining. David, if you're able to hold back for a few minutes, but thank you to everyone else for joining us, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you at future NCSR webinars, both on AI and otherwise. So thank you very much.